Let's bring Casey Joyner in and get one thought on every game. But first, let's get his thoughts on what we saw from the Eagles as they kind of steamroll. We talked about it Friday. Brian Baldinger, Casey, said he thought the Eagles were going to steamroll the Falcons. They went down there and did just that. How were they able to really just absolutely control that game against the Falcons?
A big part of it had to do with, I thought going in that the Eagles' speed on defense is going to be a difference maker for them. The Falcons' speed on defense is going to be a difference maker for them. The Eagles came in there and said, fine, we're going to run a bunch of what they call midline plays. Midline plays are inside zone reads and such, but it's designed just to go attack straight up the middle of the defense. You draw the dotted line right up the middle of the defense, and that's where you're attacking. And the Eagles said, we're doing this early, and we're doing this often, and we don't think you guys are big enough or strong enough to attack us. And when they did that, then the Falcons said, well, we've got to protect the midline. They put everybody to the inside, and then like the second half, the Eagles said, fine, they're stopping the midline, or they're trying to, they're adjusting to it. Great, we'll run perimeter. And so you get Kelsey going to the outside, both on screen plays and on running plays, and see him on that one sweep in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, midway third quarter. He turns the corner and just hits downfield and gets a one block on one guy and then gets downfield on another guy and pushes the safety about 5 yards downfield. I mean, that's what they did. I think the Eagles said our offensive line is going to be key to us winning this game. That's the strength of our team. And they utilized it both in the run game and again in the pass game with a lot of screen passes. They said, we're going to get this line involved as often as we can. So that was a huge difference maker.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on the offensive line as a whole. This line last year, you and I would discuss how much of a mess they were. 14 different line incarnations in the 16-week season. I think it was a record for most different lines. Mailata, Seumalo, Kelsey, Brooks, and Johnson. Those five together mean what?
They show that Jeff Stoutland is arguably the best offensive line coach in the NFL today, and maybe the best. One of my Philadelphia Inquirer cohorts made a case that he's the best assistant coach in Eagles history. That's how good he is. And the thing is I wrote about it in the Inquirer in the preseason, where Kelsey, he had a good season last year, but he struggled. He was less consistent than he had been, and I think it was because you got 14 offensive line combinations, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on him more than anybody else, making calls, things of that nature. And he's the center of the line. If you're trying to do those midline plays, he's going to have to help people that, frankly, he's not used to having to help. Now that you've got all that talent, I think it's one of the reasons I was so glad to see Kelsey do as well as he did, because you're seeing the Kelsey that you saw in past years. And I think you add that to Goddard blocked better yesterday. When they asked him to block, he blocked better than he had last year. And Seumalo was still Seumalo. I mean, good some plays and bad other plays, and he doesn't handle certain types of situations very well. But all in all, he still even had a solid game for him. And you can get away with an Isaac Seumalo when you've got that much talent around you. So if this line stays healthy, it is a top 5 in the league offensive line. That's how much talent and how good their coaching is in this group.
Okay, now with that comment right there, I've said that all offseason. That's why I think if the Eagles line can stay healthy, I think they can be good. Now, if they get hurt and have the issues that they had last year, that goes out the window. However, what did you see from the skill position players that maybe say, hey, if they lose a guy, do they have the talent at the skill? They haven't had the talent at the skill. They lost Deshaun Jackson, and obviously Alshon was banged up. They just didn't have the weapons. What did you take away from their skill players on Sunday?
I wrote about it for an article I did today for The Athletic. It's my week 1 mega roundup. I answered 30 questions. It's fantasy football centric, but if you're an NFL fan, it has plenty of good information in there for you. And it asks us questions for every team. And one of the things they were asking in the article was about Jalen Hurts' production. And per the research I did last night, Hurts on short passes, it's aerials thrown up to 10 yards downfield. He's 22 for 28 for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only goes 5 for 6 for 96 yards and 1 touchdown of vertical passes. Only 6 vertical passes, but he hit a touchdown on it and got a big play. Sirianni used to be a wide receiver, and the way you're seeing the wide receivers play on this team, you can tell that he has coached them up. He with his staff, of course, but he's in there helping them and coaching them up, and you could see in the way that they blocked. I liked how their blocking was, which is a very underrated thing when it comes to wide receivers, but I liked what their blocking looked like, and I liked the idea that they were able to get them as involved in the short passing attack, and it shows that Hurts, who most quarterbacks with elite skills, they like to throw the ball downfield, they like to take a lot of chances, they want to show off their arm. He was perfectly willing to say, if you guys are going to sit back and play soft coverage against us, fine, I'll keep throwing the ball short all day long. I'll stay patient. We'll keep moving. If he does that all year, this could be a very dangerous group because on short passes, he looked phenomenal yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Hurts obviously very efficient. Nick Sirianni, I thought, did a good job of accentuating the positives of his players. You know, they come out, they throw the 3 bubbles to Watkins right off the bat, and it almost felt like, you know, I know you're a wrestling guy. It was like a slow burn. It was like he was trying to set up something for down the line, and he said, well, we don't need it this week. I'll shelf Watkins. You had to account for Watkins the rest of the day because they showed they were going to go to him and then never did again, and I thought that opened up the field for almost everybody else.
It did. They were playing in spread offense. You're playing the numbers game, essentially, where you're trying to see, you're going to split the field into thirds, and you're going to read each of the thirds of the field, and you're going to go, okay, well, if they have more players than we do on one side, we won't go that way. If they overplay the outside, we'll have Hurts to the keeper. It's not it's not the most difficult, most complex offense to do, but it does require making good decisions on your part. And if you've got people who can still stretch the field deep, you're going to cause them to have numbers deeper in the field and things. So you're going to give yourself the options to attack perimeters because your numbers are going to be good there, and because you're attacking deep in the field, and you've got Hurts being able to keep things on keeper. So it's the kind of game plan where it's a simple game plan, and teams will be able to disrupt. If you want to just run numbers all day and try and play that kind of spread numbers game, a defense will eventually do things to make you have to do something else. But until a defense makes you have to do something else, until a defense figures out how to make Hurts and this offense have to do other things, they'll keep doing that all game long because everything that they did in that worked yesterday.
Obviously, the offensive line, let's go back to them and talk about, I mean, Mailata was just dominant. And I want to get your opinion on Saturday. They gave him a 4-year, $64 million extension, which could be worth up to $85 million or something in that range. He's played 10 games. Your thought process, or their thought process, did they make the right decision? Did they jump the gun? What do you think about the deal they gave Mailata?
I think that there are times when, what's that old saying, Ernie Corsi said about elite quarterbacks. He said there's no price that's too high to pay for an elite quarterback. But the key is if you know the quarterback's elite. If you're giving a bunch of money to Matthew Stafford in Detroit, doesn't work out. You get him out to LA, it's a different story. But if you put a quarterback in a situation and you're going to pay him a certain amount of money, that's not it may only make sense if the player's elite. I think they're realizing with Mailata, they probably have an elite player on their hands, or a top 5 player on their hands. That they've got somebody who can protect the backside, and they know we're never going to get our passing game going unless we keep that offensive line going. Plus, I think it says something for Stoutland too, because they realize, let's say they're going to keep Stoutland for that amount of time. They know Stoutland can be able to develop him into that sort of player. If you had an average offensive line coach, if you had a good offensive line coach, then you might say, well, we don't know if we could put that kind of money in there. I guarantee they didn't make that kind of decision without consulting him and asking him, what do you think? And he probably told them, this is what I think this guy is capable of. And they know what his coaching can do for him as well. So I think it's a combination of a number of factors that says, yeah, it's worth it because, I mean, barring injury, but you could say that about any player, this is somebody worth investing in a long haul.
All right. Offensively, 32 points. Defensively, 6 points. What did they do defensively to hold Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, Matt Ryan? How were they able to keep that offense under 300 total yards of offense?
A big part of it was pass rush. I mentioned that article I wrote for The Athletic in the section, because I answered one question for each team. In the section for the Atlanta Falcons, it talks about how Kyle Pitts, he had a team high in targets, 8 targets, and he was tied for third in routes run 31. So they were wanting to send things to Kyle Pitts. There were good coverage against him, but on 8 of those targets, 4 of those targets occurred when Matt Ryan was under pass rush pressure. And they were able to get pass rush pressure on him consistently. I thought that was a big part of the game. Late in the game, obviously, they were able to get some sacks when things started turning away from that. But they were able to get things done consistently against him. One thing I'm concerned about, though, as far as we talked going into this game, that the Eagles, they used to play a lot of one-gapping defense, get upfield. We've always talked about how they do well in good blocking rate and bad in good blocking yards per attempt. They did very well in good blocking yards per attempt today or yesterday. They did solid. They got 7.8 yards. That would be above league average. Kind of total, it would probably get you in the top 10, maybe top 8 in that category. Problem is they gave up good blocking 50% of the time on running plays. They were doing a lot of, I thought, two-gapping, a lot of area control instead of trying to get up the field. And Atlanta doesn't have breakaway backs, so they weren't able to hit that, to get a lot of yardage off of those plays. other teams are going to be able to do that better. So if I had to say one thing I'm a bit concerned about for the Eagles is you're going to have to stop throwing better than you did because there are better running teams out there. When you see them, if you give up 50% good blocking rate, they're going to be gaining a lot of yards on you, and it's going to change the dynamic of a game.
All right, Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's get into it. Eagles beat the Falcons 32-6. You heard a couple thoughts on that one. We'll recap it at the end. But first, Pittsburgh goes to Buffalo. Everybody was hyping up the Buffalo Bills, but the Pittsburgh defense, they look legit.
They look legit. They got a phenomenal pass rush against Josh Allen. And outside him, if you look at the early in the game, 75-yard kickoff, and suddenly it looks like Buffalo's going to run away with this thing. Steelers stopped them then. They got the blocked punt. They couldn't run the ball well, but then even in the second half, they would get their passing game going. I mean, Buffalo looked like a team that walked in there really overconfident, and the Steelers said, fine, this is who we are this year. And imagine when the Steelers get a better running game, because the running game didn't work yesterday. If they get a better running game with the rest of that team, that's a Super Bowl contender.
All right, over in Cincinnati, this one went to overtime. Minnesota goes on the road. They've got to come all the way back. They go to overtime, and you lose to the Bengals in opening week. That's a tough way to start your season.
It is. I'll tell you, though, Jamar Chase had the second most receiving yards for a Bengals receiver in team history for your first start. I mean, so he had a phenomenal start. And the Vikings, hey, look, I mean, Cousins throws for 351, but that's not who they want to be. They don't want to be a Cousins 300-plus yard guy. They don't want to have to get into those kind of shootouts. They had one of the worst defenses in the league last year, the worst that Zimmer said he's ever seen, and they're not that much better this year. So I'm really, really about Minnesota's defense at this point.
I had Jamar Chase. I benched him for Devonta Smith, but I have a lot of questions at wide receiver I need answered, man. But I also have Dalvin Cook. I need more Dalvin Cook in my life. All right, San Francisco, they look like they were up big. Detroit kind of got back in this game, but the 49ers put up 41. They got some key injuries, though, and the Lions are the Lions.
I got to wonder what happened with Trey Sermon, because he was a hyped-up rookie coming into the season, and he was a healthy scratch yesterday. I don't know if something came up or what, but so, I mean, the 49ers were, as is the case with good blocking, if you get good run blocking, you can have average backs, you can still get running attack. They did that. The Lions are the worst secondary in the league, and Deebo Samuel just destroyed them. What I like about Detroit, though, they get down by all those points and they fight back. There were years not that long ago when if the Lions would have got that far down, San Francisco would have put up 50-plus. Instead, the Lions kept fighting. So give Campbell credit for getting a team at least is going to bite kneecaps.
Let's go to this one was interesting. Tennessee hosting Arizona. Cardinals look great, 38-13. Chandler Jones was Reggie White out there yesterday. Tennessee might actually have to pick up the phone and say, hey, is Andre Dillard available? Because Tyler Lewan looked terrible. He actually said, thank you for whipping me. This might help me learn. But what happened to Tennessee? No Arthur Smith, maybe.
That's exactly what I would lean towards. That Arthur Smith, I mean, mind you, his offense didn't look great yesterday, but he
doesn't have the same personnel in Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. Not the same personnel. It doesn't have, but I mean, Derrick Henry and Julio Jones combined, I think it was 53 scrimmage yards between them combined. I mean, that just says something. Their offensive line played badly. Julio lost his cool. His coach is, calling him out today in the press and saying, hey, you can't be that kind of a player. I think that Arthur Smith brought a lot more to that team than what they had expected. And Todd Downing is, hey, it's game one. He's their new offensive coordinator, and you can't judge a guy after one game, but this has got to get a whole lot better because it wasn't, Arthur Smith kind of made it look easy. Let's just run Derrick all the time and go from there. But it was a lot more complex than that. And Downing's got to step up. If he doesn't, Tennessee doesn't have a defense to keep up.
All right, Seattle goes to Indianapolis. They beat the Colts. Tough day for Carson Wentz. Got sacked, held the ball, fumbled. Second verse, same as the first.
It was in Seattle. 4 touchdown passes for Russell, despite throwing, 23 passes yesterday. Seattle can still go vertical. Seattle's going to play their kind of ground game. It's still not going to be what they were. But, I mean, Indianapolis, I don't think that they handle. I think Seattle came in there with a power attack that Indianapolis doesn't tend to handle well. I think they're a more athletic team, and I think they don't handle that type of physicality. And they've got a bad secondary to give up that many big plays because it wasn't just dink and dunk touchdowns. It was long passes. So they got a lot of concerns on the Colts.
All right, let's go to Washington. They've already lost their quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick on the injured list. Tyler Heineke came in, not enough. Justin Herbert gets the win. They beat that really good Washington defense, so the Chargers show they can win a close game finally.
They do, and that was a big problem for them. And the fact they went to the East Coast, 1 o'clock kickoff, tough defense. They've got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new head coach in in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So, I mean, they had a lot of changes, and they were able to do that. I think if Fitzpatrick was healthy and played the whole game, it might have been a different story. But, again, you got to have a good backup, and Heineke's not good enough yet. I think it's a big problem for Washington. They probably need a quarterback upgrade, or that's going to be a 4-win team.
All right, two teams that might win 4 games, the Jets and Carolina. They battled on Sunday. Sam Darnold, did he make the Jets regret giving up on him?
I mean, they like what they got out of Wilson, so I think they're okay. I think that they like where they're at. The Jets have a lot of question marks on their team, but Carolina's got Darnold. Carolina's got 2 good receivers. Carolina has more other talents on their team as well. I think if the ball bounces well, they're a 9-win team this year. I think if the ball doesn't bounce well, they're a 7-win team, but they're still trending upward, and I think they've got something they could build on Darnold. So I think they're finding ways to use Darnold better in their offense than the Jets did.
All right, one thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jacksonville, Houston. This is a stinker of a game, but the result actually opens eyes. Houston puts up 37. How long is the Urban Meyer experience going to go?
Urban Meyer experience is going to be tough because they've got the worst defense in the league. They don't have a very good offensive line, and James Robinson didn't look that good. And Lawrence, they only gave him half the snaps in preseason. They should have given him a whole lot more than that. Houston, though, they block well. They know what they want to be. Cully knows what he wants this team to be. He gave Ingram a ton of carries, and I think that knowing what they want to be and saying this is what we're going to do, it's going to be simple. We're going to pound teams. I think Houston may win more games than people expect, and I think Jacksonville, I don't think they'll be a 2-win team this year, but they're trending 4 as well.
All right, Cleveland, Kansas City, maybe the most entertaining game of the day. Cleveland goes up big. Kansas City comes back, biggest comeback in a regular season game for Patrick Mahomes. He's on my fantasy team, 33-29.
You are lucky to have him. He is going to be that good. And again, Kelsey did great and Hill did great. Cleveland, though, get a punter who can handle the pressure. I mean,
unbelievable.
What a gaffe. And you could see I watched the replay about 6 times. You could just see that crowd rattled him. That crowd and that punt rush rattled him. Although punt rush they blocked, he just expected it to be there. He wasn't even looking at the ball when it got there. So I think Cleveland, that says something for them that they've got to find a way to get their team to believe they can win those sorts of games, because yesterday looked like they did for a while, but then they thought they were going to ball.
At this time, I'm power washing my porch. Okay, so the game's on, but I'm power washing the porch. My buddy's over, and they're doing a shot of the punter. Now I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Why are they showing this guy? Then I saw the replay and said, oh, that's why they showed that guy. Miami goes to New England. Mac Jones, 281 yards, but it's the Dolphins getting a road win, 17-16.
And getting the fumble late in the game, their defense made a big play to get that turnover. It's a big plus for Miami to be able to do this. They beat New England last year at home, and so it shows that Flores can keep up play calling. He's one of the few coaches. You look at a lot of Belichick's disciples, and they don't know how to play Belichick ball. They don't know how to do the things that he did. But I think Flores is a guy who does know how to, at least on the defense. He can implement the same sort of plans and do the same kinds of things, and it says a lot for Miami. I think going into this year, that's a 10-win team that is a playoff club. And what they did last year is not a fluke. This is a team that I think is going to be playoff bound and may make a little noise in the playoffs too.
Very interesting. Devonta Parker, 81 yards in that game. Well, this one here had to be the surprise of the day. New Orleans 38, Green Bay 3. Winston only throws 20 times, but 5 touchdowns. How did they blow somebody out by throwing 20 passes?
They ran the ball a ton. I mentioned in the Athletic article that by the 2-minute warning in the first half, New Orleans had 24 rush plays and 12 pass plays. This is a very run-heavy team, and they can run the ball well, which allowed them to absorb the injuries that they had. Look at they had at wide receiver. I mean, they were missing Thomas. Callaway didn't do anything. They had a little Jordan Humphrey was their third receiver. They've got Adam Troutman. They've got Deontay Harris. This is a group of nobodies among their pass catchers. And yet, again, he throws 5 touchdown passes because he gets in close. Winston does and closes up with the short scores. But that is a run team and a play the defense team. And as long as Winston doesn't make turnovers, that's a team that also is a Super Bowl contender.
All right, Denver goes to New York. They beat the Giants. Daniel Jones, 267 yards, but he was outdone by Teddy Bridgewater. The defense, I thought, for the Giants played well. Their offense, the offensive line is an issue again.
It is. The funny thing is that I thought they'd be historically bad, and they were bad, but they actually played better, I guess, from a relative perspective.
You're too kind, Casey Joyner.
I am. I was expecting like a 10% good block rate. They got I think it was 27. So I mean, it's still really bad. I just thought they were going to be atrocious. the thing is I mean, that team was built for Barkley. That team was built for a running game, and if you can't run block, Barkley's never going to get anything. He didn't look bad either. It looked like he's going to be coming back better from the injury and things. But give Denver credit. Bridgewater on the road, East Coast game, all of that, and that team has has talent on offense too. Melvin Gordon showing, hey, he wants extra money. Mind his 70-yard touchdown runs will get you there. So I think Denver's got more talent than people expect. And the Giants, again, that could be a 4-win team if that outline doesn't play better.
All right, then Sunday night football, Rams, not a big surprise. They win 34-13. I guess it was close at some point in the third, but Chicago's offense limited. When do they make the move to Fields? Did that change the outlook for them? And what did you think of Stafford in his first Rams uniform?
I think they didn't want to make the move to Fields because they knew if they put Fields out there against the Rams, things might be just as bad and you'd wreck a rookie. So I think they made an intelligent choice to say, we're going to wait on putting him in there. And Stafford, I predicted before the season, or I do a podcast for the Athletic, a betting podcast, and said that Stafford was a good long shot play for be able to lead the league in touchdown passes because McVay says he gets when he calls a play, he knows he's got all 5 eligible receivers that he can call play for, and they've got tons of talent. Look at Van Jefferson; he's their 3, maybe their 4 receiver, and he's getting a big play as well. Woods didn't even get utilized that much last night, and he offers big plays. So as long as Stafford can stay healthy, big if, but as long as he can, I think the Rams again are a strong Super Bowl contender. Last night was not a fluke. That's who they are.
One thought: every game tonight, Baltimore, Vegas. That's the game here on 97.3 ESPN. Ravens ravaged by injuries. Vegas feels 500, and I know that they're opening that building tonight for the first time.
They are. That's the thing that it really throws
with fans,
off.
By the way, first time with fans.
Yeah,
I want the
fans.
gotcha people out there to know that I know they played in Vegas last year.
That stadium is beautiful. I was out there a year ago, January, and it is just a gleaming onyx pearl in the desert and things. It's fantastic. But if it weren't for that, I would really think that Baltimore would still win this game, even with their injuries. They've got Joe D'Alessandro as their offensive line coach. They've got a fantastic offensive line. They can run the ball well. They know who they want to be. Their coaches say nothing but good things about Tyson Williams. They think he's a rookie who played well during the preseason. They think, and again, you're just talking midline plays. You're just reading A-gap to A-gap, get upfield. I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively. I still think they'll win. But right now, that crowd is the one thing that makes me wonder if the Ravens might get a little rattled, because that crowd could be nuts of the first home game in Vegas history.
All right, listen to that game tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. The pregame coverage starts at 7:30. He is Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Check out all of his great material at The Athletic, the Philadelphia Inquirer as well. And on Friday, he is back with one thought on every Week 2 game. It starts to move fast. Don't move too fast. Week 2 is here quickly. Casey Joyner will be back on Friday's show. Thank you, pal.
Appreciate it.
All right, Casey Joyner here is brought to you by Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. That's 609-463-CAPE. Casey Joyner's appearance on the Sports Bash is brought to you by Cape Regional Health System.